And we are live. Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Crocus Experience, guys and girls. Excited to have Paul with me here today. And I'll give you guys a little bit of a background here on Paul. So we connected not that long ago, maybe a couple months ago as Facebook friends, but we were in a lot of the same groups. And I certainly was bumping into Paul, helping people, giving people suggestions when they were asking questions. So sort of just noticed him, right? Noticed that Paul was around. We connected on Facebook, started seeing more of your stuff, as the algorithm kind of serves it up to us. And so I started looking at like what you had going on and realized, you guys have got like 35,000 followers on your Facebook page, and that I started paying attention to what you were saying, right? And started noticing what it was that you were doing. So Paul, we're gonna get into some good stuff here, but welcome aboard. Excited to have you and really pleased that we could make this happen.
Yeah. Thank you for the intro and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do here is, guys, I'm going to have comments up, and I believe everywhere it's shared to, the comments come through for me. So I've already got one here. And Devin saying Paul has all the beard that I was ever able to grow. So guys, as you're listening, watching, share this out. Paul's got a ton of info for any type of business owner, but especially the junk removal businesses. I think there's a lot of stuff that people can learn from here. I'm excited to learn. So comment, share this out. We'd love to interact with the comments too. I'll bring them up on the screen, just like we did there with Devin. So Paul, why don't you give us a quick intro into, who Paul is, what's going on, where you're located in the world, because it's certainly not freezing cold Canada, and just tell the people, who you are a little bit.
So I was born and raised in New Zealand, and now I live on the other side of the world, in Coventry in the UK. I don't really know where to start. There's a lot of story to my life. So I came out here when I was 15. My father had a house moving company in the second biggest city in the UK. It was quite a large company, so I got thrown into that at a young age. I've lived many lives. I was a guardsman outside Buckingham Palace, so the red tunic and the big black bearskin. I just tried my hand at many things and just fell into junk removal, and it seemed to work for me. It seemed to work really well for me.
I love it. What I think that's a good segue into kind of diving into the junk removal story, but let's first touch on the guard at the Buckingham Palace. How did that
happen? It happened by chance. I decided to join the army, and I went into a recruiting office, and I basically wanted to drive trucks. And the recruiter there, he could sell ice to Eskimos. He was that good. And he was like, you don't want to drive trucks. You want to be famous. You want to wear the red tunic and the bearskin and be in thousands of Japanese photo albums and look after the Queen's own. And by the end of it, I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. I've got the world's biggest two left feet. So getting into like something where marching was heavily involved was not a good idea. But I soon learned and got very good at it, got very good at ironing, polishing my boots, and standing still for hours on end. But it was exciting.
That's something that, it's a round-the-clock job, isn't it? So you're shifting on and shifting off all the time, right?
Doing 2 hours on, 2 hours off for a 12-hour shift. It's the regiment is actually quite an elite fighting regiment. So the guards are the first people that are sent in to any conflict around the world. They were the first ones into Basra in Iraq. They're up there with the Marines and the Paras. So The training isn't just about the discipline of standing still. There's a very elite fighting side to it. So that was kind of exciting. There's several different regiments within the Guards division, and we all sort of rotate off and on London. But I spent a bit of time there, got what I wanted from it, and then went off and lived the rest of my life. That's cool. I get to say that, I sort of the guard, which is pretty cool. Not many people get to say that.
And you're in thousands of Japanese photo albums. Like how much
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Famous before I knew it.
So that, I mean, we may as well just end the interview here, because that's the key to your whole organic success here. You've just given away the keys to the castle. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But that's really cool. That's a very interesting stint. What did you get out of that? Just kind of said, hey, this is not for me. I'm done with it, or just were like, hey, time for another career here.
Just time for something else. I got what I needed from it. Life's about experience, isn't it? So I try and have as many experiences as I can. I joined it for me more than anything else, so that I could gain some skills. And once I'd got there, you know what? The army life's pretty boring. It's 90% boredom and 10% shitting yourself, and pure adrenaline. So I sort of need constant stimulation, and work for the sake of work's sake really isn't my kind of thing. But I did it. I did it well. I've learned a lot, and I've brought those skills with me, and I use them in Junk Monkeys. And I like to think it's part of the reason we are as popular as what we are.
Interesting. Let's touch back on that. Let's touch back on that a little bit as we get into it. But so did you go straight from the regiment into starting your own business?
No. I went back to New Zealand. Messed about around down there for a couple of years. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I'm very much into fast cars, and I got swept away in, I shouldn't really say this, but this whole street racing scene back in New Zealand, and got myself into a little bit of trouble here and there. And then decided that, if I carried on, I probably wasn't going to be around much longer, and moved. Where did I move to then? Hawaii. So I spent 6 months in Hawaii and on Molokai, and then up to Scotland, in the Highlands of Scotland, where my dad had relocated, and started working with him, doing house moves yet again.
That's amazing. So you're getting that experience in, getting those adventures in. I'm going to take a pause here. Christopher says he's jumping in. Appreciate you. And Nick is asking what time it is over there, Paul.
It is now coming up to 7:20 on Friday evening.
I love it. Nick's in Michigan, so he's a little bit removed from where you are. Okay, so you head back to the Highlands there. I love it. We've got the charger delivery here.
Yes, indeed. I'm just going to plug it in because we're running low on
all
juice.
Good, my friend.
I was expecting my laptop to be a bit more forthgiving, but it's not playing the game. There we go.
Not a problem. This is a surprise trick for the audience. We both knew what was happening.
Yeah. So my Wi-Fi decided not to work on the laptop, and I'm having to use my phone.
All good. Okay, so you head back to the Highlands, and then you eventually find yourself in junk removal. So where did that where you said you kind of found that was the thing, but what year was it that you kind of were like, I would imagine you were looking for the next thing, right? And junk removal is what you landed on.
I found a job in it. I've done house moves most of my life. Like, it was my first job when I first moved to the UK. Got, again, sort of, very proficient in it. In the end, it was just my father and me driving around in a big wagon with a trailer on the back, going from one end of the UK to another. And we got very well known for moving specialist things like antiques, doing a lot of the aristocratical moves. And I got bored of it. And I moved back down to England, to a city called Birmingham, where I first moved to, and basically where I had a big friend network. And I just stumbled across a job doing junk removal, and I thought, you know what, it's going to bring all of the elements of house moves that I enjoy, and I get to break stuff. Like, how cool is that? It seems so perfect for me. So yeah, I sort of worked for them for a while, and I just I just had an inner feeling that I could do it better without sounding arrogant. I just felt that this company portrayed an image of being the best around and being a caring company and doing the right thing. And behind the scenes, I found it wasn't quite like that. So I just thought, you know what, I can do this better. And I took the plunge. A big, scary step, definitely a big, scary step going into the business world. And I've not looked back, really.
That's amazing. What year was that you jumped out?
Oh, God, my memory now. The Junk Monkeys has been going for about 5 years. I tried about 2 years earlier with a different company, but didn't quite get my feet off the ground with it. So you're looking about, it's been a couple of years, about 8 years, realistically, 8 years ago.
Cool. So, I've got a couple more comments, and then we'll hop back in. Jason, awesome to have you here. Great to have be part of the community as well. And Devin says, did any of your experiences working in a moving company before junk removal teach you any valuable lessons? And just before you hop into that, guys, anybody who's listening, drop comments. We'd love to see who's here. We love the interaction, and you've got Paul's ear. So as we get into stuff here, ask away. But go for answering Devin's question there.
Yeah, 100%. Everything about moving houses and the negotiating of door frames and furniture and not damaging property, and just how to pick things up and how to pack and how to all of it's transferable. Again, the beautiful thing with junk removal is if it doesn't quite fit, you can break it and make it fit. Well, you can't do that with somebody's furniture. Yeah. So everything that I learned with that, I definitely brought over into this with me, and then just added to it. Junk Monkeys is a combination of my life. It's everything skills-wise that I've learned rolled up into one package that I give to the customer. So the discipline of the army, the life experience of moving people, how to communicate with people. I've done a few jobs in sales before where I've learned how to communicate, how to verbalize things with people, and to tell stories. And I've just rolled that all into this one package. But it definitely moves. They're very similar industries. I just like this one better.
Yeah, breaking stuff is a lot more fun than being on pins and needles the whole time. Awesome. So you get into Junk Monkeys, and then what we see now. Did you always have the vision that this is where it was going to be? Did you always know, like right from the start, that this is where you were going to be with this?
100%. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, I knew. I remember speaking to a couple of people before I started it off, and I said, "We're going to be famous," and people wouldn't believe me. They would, "No, of course you. How are you going to be famous? You're just a bloke, you're doing moving jobs." I said, "No, it's going to be famous, and it's going to be famous for the right reasons." I had this vision. I didn't quite know what the vision was, if I'm honest. Apart from that, I knew it was going to succeed and that we would be loved by the people in a way. And it's gone far past any expectations I've had. And if you'd asked me then how I was going to do it, I wouldn't have had any idea. But I had something in here was saying, do it. It's going to work.
That's amazing. So you had the vision, you just didn't have the know-how, which is, that's the ultimate entrepreneurial jumping out of the plane and building the parachute, right?
Exactly.
So Josh, I see your question. I'll pull it up here in a second because we're going to dive. Josh has a question about Facebook, and that's a core thing I want to talk about. But before we get into that, you're just starting out. What did you do? Because I talked to a lot of people in my role as someone who has a junk removal business and also does marketing, websites, SEO, and Google Ads. I talked to a lot of people, and not all of them are ready to get someone on to pay, right? In a pay role to do marketing. So when you started, what did you do that worked well? And I guess let's touch on what didn't work well too, because I enjoy those almost as much too.
Okay, so it was a bit of a stroke of luck really when I started. The first 2 years, we did a lot of subcontract work for a national company.
Mm-hmm.
The money wasn't great. We had to really, really work for it, but it enabled me to slowly build the business up, and then be able to sort of take staff on and get it to quite a reasonable little level. Facebook came about from me injuring myself, and I blew my back out, and I couldn't move. I was bedbound for 2 weeks. I couldn't walk. It was quite serious. If I'd sort of sneezed the wrong way, I could have ended up paralyzed within that fortnight. The next sort of 2 weeks, I was hobbling about on walking sticks, and the next 4 weeks, I basically had 2 months off work. And my worry was, I've got this time where I'm very active, I'm very hands-on, and I had a couple of lads working for me that were good, but they didn't know how to run things. And I was trying to run it from lying on a sofa. So I needed to keep them busy. And I knew that we were wanting to come out of this contract work and get more into residential side of things. So, do you know what? I thought I'm going to have to utilize this time to actually make sure that it's not a waste of time, that I actually benefit from it somehow, and I keep these guys busy in work, and I can keep the company going. And then that's basically where I just spent my days Googling marketing strategies, how to market, how to brand. And I'll be honest, it's all the same old jargon. Present a problem, show a customer a problem, offer them the solution. And if everybody's doing it, then how's it going to work? Sort of the question that was running in my head. And I basically just ignored it all and did the opposite. And it worked. I don't know if that answers the question or if I've just gone on a bit of a tangent, but
that's first of all, I'm glad you pulled through and didn't have that fatal sneeze, because that, it would have been a much different conversation. And it's a very physical, very, very physical, line of work. So I guess I'll pull Josh's comment up here, but I also do want to talk through, like, when you say the opposite, because I've followed your feed, and you shared out, and there's a couple posts recently that I want to touch on. One, you guys kind of blew up.
I did not expect that one to that went big,
which is cool. But Josh says basically, do you think a company can generate quality leads from Facebook? How many customers do you talk to on Facebook every week?
95 to 98% of our work comes through Facebook.
Can you say that again? Because that's, you said 95% of your work comes through Facebook.
That's 95 to 98% comes through Facebook. I've tried to explain this to people on the group so many times, because you always see the questions, that Facebook ads work, how does Facebook work? And you always get the same comments that you will just get low ballers, it's a waste of time. People need to understand a couple of very basic principles when it comes to Facebook. And they're so simple. It's just, I don't know why more people aren't doing it. The one key thing I think that prevents people getting quality leads from Facebook is they haven't been consistent for long enough. You have to be consistent for a long period of time. You have to understand that Facebook is not Google. It is not advertising. And even if you run an advert, that is not an advert. It's not, there's a difference between advertising and marketing. Advertising is instant. Somebody wants something, they go on Google, your website pops up, phone the number, I want a junk removal, how soon can you be here? Marketing, you're building a relationship over time, and that customer will watch you for a month, 3 months, 6 months. I've had people watch me for 2 years, and then they're like messaging saying, I've finally got enough junk to get you guys around. I'm so excited. So it's not an immediate return, and you have to spend that time. And at the start, it's a lot of dead time where you're putting content out there, quite often not knowing how people are going to engage with it and react to it, and you're getting nothing back. But then 6 months down the line, it will start to pick up, and then a year down the line, it's picked up even more. So as long as you can sustain yourself throughout that time period and allow the following to grow and allow its relationships, allow you yourself to build those relationships with potential customers, then you will reach a point where the snowball effect just kicks in, and it takes on a power of its own. You've got to get some first adopters in there. Number one, you've got to get people who want to be, they want the latest thing, they want to be part of the next big thing, and they can see the potential. You've got to know your target audience. You have to know who you're talking to. There's no point me putting posts up about my passion for fast cars, because that's not my audience. They don't care about that kind of stuff. They care about my family values and who I am as a person. Although, in saying that, the original way that I did the marketing was a bit cheeky, and it's not like it is now. My target audience is female. It's middle-aged females. And I had a bit of a rule at the start that the people that work with me had to go to the gym and they had to build physiques. And I sold basically the Diet Coke experience. It's not some scruffy, bare-bellied guy turning up to move the junk. It's a couple of very in shape young guys who, are fast. I sold eye candy. I don't know if that's a phrase that you guys use, but yeah, I pretty much sold eye candy, and would show gym pictures of us in the gym, and I'd frame it in ways of like, this we do this so that we're good at our job, and we do, because it's so physical.
Yeah,
and that worked. That worked too well at times. I've had to turn adverts off because of some very thirsty female comments. Very, very thirsty.
You mean you weren't doing a Magic Mike calendar? That wasn't the whole plan of it?
You know how many times we've been asked to do a calendar? I've lost count, absolutely lost count. But things change, and when my partner Darian came on board, obviously I couldn't portray things like that. Sex sells, doesn't it? It does. So I just sort of like transitioned more into family values, and this is who we are as a family, and here's our kids, and I still do the gym things because Darian now goes to the gym with me, and Progress is taking off, and she's eye candy for the blokes, eye candy for the woman. It goes hand in hand and works. But yeah, that's what I did at the start, and it worked very well, very, very well. I was speaking to my audience. I was never rude. I was never arrogant. I was never creepy with it. It was a little tongue in cheek here and there, a little cheeky here and there, but I let them lead and I sort of followed.
Sure.
I'm not saying everybody can do that or should do that. You have to very, very delicately Facebook can break a business like that. It can be the worst thing it's the one place where, apart from Twitter, where people have no filter. They will just say what's on their mind. And if they don't agree with you, they will let the world know. And then all you need is a couple more people that see that comment that don't agree with you as well. And you've just got a whole water fight that you don't need. Yeah. Now, we've been really lucky that we haven't had that. We don't get trolled. We don't get anything negative.
I don't think I wouldn't say it's luck, Paul. Not in following, certainly the evolution that you've reached at this point. Because I have been studying it, and that's why I wanted to have you on. Because I think that everyone should follow. Everyone who is doing a junk business right now should be following Junk Monkeys and watching this, because you portray there's something real and raw about your posts. And so to troll it would kind of, it would be out of place. You lead while following your audience in a way that's really powerful. And I imagine it probably wasn't always like that. You've honed your storytelling skills over time. What would you say? I'd like to ask this question first, and then we'll dive into the real and the raw post that you just made that really went crazy. But what would you say to someone who is starting out and they're like, well, I have no idea what to post. Some people have a hard time just consistently posting pictures of their jobs. So consistency in any form is, hard. And I think, they don't see that immediate feedback, right? And so they're like, well, it's not working. I may as well pay someone, thousands of dollars to get me some mediocre results, right? So what would you say to someone who's starting out and they see these stories that you post and the thought and the ease with which you do them? What would you say to them, to just get started with something?
I still struggle finding content. I won't lie. It's a little easier now. It's hard day in, day out to engage people, but you've got to keep it consistent. Now, I quite famously am known to say that nobody goes on Facebook to buy anything. If they do, they're scoping through Marketplace. We can't advertise on Marketplace. We can't put posts up there. People go on Facebook to see what their friends and family are doing. And so you need to become friends and family. You need to just be real. My posts, they are raw. There's not a lot of filter in them. People get to know me and my family, and that's how you build the following. Tell stories. I think number one is to learn how to tell a story. I think that's very important. Now, I'm dyslexic. I have ADHD. I've got the whole world against me in the case of storytelling, and yet I can still tell a story. There's a certain structure to stories. You have to have a start, a middle, and an end. You have to take people on a journey. And if you can learn how to take people on a journey with words, they will come back for more and more. And when your post pops up on their feed, they will take that time to click the see more part and read. Some of my posts are really long, and I don't like reading long posts personally. I don't know many people who do, but people do read them because they get engaged and they get caught in the suspension of disbelief. They get lost in that moment, and I take them into my world. You've got to be honest. Just tell stories. Some of the posts that I put up, I'm like, then they're just things that happen day in, day out. Things that the kids do, things that Darian does, and I put one up the other day. We got our van stuck outside of a customer's house in some mud. We sunk the van. Now, most people will be like, don't put something like that up. It's negative. You've got to put the negative up. People want to see the challenge. They don't. Nobody's life's perfect. Everybody has trouble and difficulties with something, somewhere, somehow. And it's nice for them to see that other people share those struggles. So share your struggles, tell the stories. That post got, I think it's about 300 likes on it or something like that, which is it's quite a good result. Everything's organic, nothing's boosted. You just got to tell stories about what you're doing, what you've been up to. And it is difficult to, I put a lot of me into our stories, and it's kind of scary because you're going to be judged, and you become quite vulnerable by writing some of these stories out. The post that we're going to get to, that's been with me for a long time, and I've not been able to write it for a long time, and I think it needed to be said, and it messed me up that night. Darian had to take over all the messages that were coming in and all the comments, and I had to keep putting comments up, just saying like, look, I wish I can get back to everybody, and this isn't a promotion. Accused of it being a promotion somehow, and it drained me. It really did drain me emotionally, because it's my story. It's part of my my life. It's a life experience of mine that was very hard to deal with at the time, and you've just got to be prepared to become vulnerable and to put yourself out there and be in a position to be judged. So how to do it? Just, you got a funny story, a funny thing that happened today? Write about it. put it on your page. It might not get any likes. Doesn't matter. The likes might come later. Something bad happens tomorrow, write about it. But present it in a way that people are going to understand, follow, and feel. If people feel something, then they're more drawn to it. Nothing that I do is, in all honesty, I don't really market or brand. There's not a lot on my page that is about junk removal. I might share reviews every time they come in. Yep. I might say we've done this on a job. We've took the kids out to do this quote with us, and look, they're jumping around on some logs, and there's nothing really there promoting, branding, marketing, but it all is at the same time. So you've got to learn how to tell a story. You've just got to get brave and tell those stories, and don't panic when nothing happens, because this is a slow burn and it will happen, but you just got to keep consistent.
I love it. That's there's some nuggets in there, guys and girls. If you're watching now or watching later, the consistency is so key. I've seen this personally. I do a lot of my connection with people is personally on my timeline. It's telling stories. It's getting vulnerable, and I really focus. Like over the last year, I've shared this on some podcasts, but I've had quite a journey of my own personal growth and mental health journey, and sharing that gets so much more interaction than just saying, "Oh, look, we're incredible. We launched this new website, or we're crushing on ads." No one cares about that. They see that all the time. They've never seen, I have an X factor. You have an X factor. Everybody has an X factor that no one can duplicate. And that's them. That's the things that make you tick. That's the stuff that makes you, get up in the morning. It's the stuff that you struggle with. And sharing that, people buy from people, right? And that's what, you've said this. I've seen you say this multiple times in the group too. So I know you subscribe to that theory. People buy from people, and they want to see you as a person, not as a business owner. They don't care about your decals and your logos. That's all part of it, sure. But that's not what they care about. They care about you, because they're, at the end of the day, you're going to be standing in their driveway saying, okay, this is what it's going to cost. This is how it's all going to go down. This is, you're going to have conversations with real people.
100%. You hit the nail on the head completely there. I couldn't have put that any better myself, if I'm honest.
I've just been picking up what you're laying down, Paul, and putting it back. So do you mind going into that post?
Yeah, that's cool.
You were very clear of that when you posted it, but maybe just summarize a little bit about what went down, and then you finally sat down and wrote about it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to talk about.
I understand. Appreciate you being willing to.
Yeah, no. I just basically went to do what I thought was a messy clearance. And it turned out that the guy was in a really bad way mentally, and had just been lost by the system and lost by the world. And he'd spent 7 years in a flat after his mother died. He'd lived with his mother all his life. Had severe learning disabilities, and she'd cared for him. She'd passed away. He'd got put into a flat, and he didn't know how to adult. He just didn't know how to do it. Not his fault. He just wasn't capable of looking after himself. And I think the big takeaway from that story is that the system failed him, and humanity failed this guy. His bathroom broke after a year in the flats, and he'd been defecating in bags and peeing in bottles, and we didn't know this until we walked in. The only job I've not been able to do, we just weren't prepared for it. We weren't kitted out for it. It was too much of a risk, and it was hard because I had to walk away from that job, and I knew that in his mind we were his last chance, and I knew that if I walked away from that job doing nothing, he was about to be evicted, and there was, he would have been on the street, and he wouldn't have lasted 2 months on the street. He was in ill health as it was, And I felt like I'd been put into a position where, as crazy as it sounds, I was going to be signing his death sentence. The reality is that no matter, even if I had been able to clear that apartment, he was still getting evicted, and he still would have ended up in a bad way. So I contacted a few services. I didn't really know who to speak to or who to reach out to, and quite a few people brushed me off and him. And eventually got hold of somebody who did do something about putting some sort of care into place for him. And then not long ago, sort of found out that he had recently passed away, which realistically was inevitable. He was too far gone. But it was just to highlight that you don't know who's living next door to you in this day and age. You know, we live in a world now where there isn't really such thing as community. We're all on our phones. We're all in the social space and in the ether. And a lot of people don't know their neighbours, let alone who lives 3 doors down from them. And this guy had just, he was in a block of apartments, and nobody had checked on him. Nobody has realised the severity of what this guy was living with, and it hit me really hard. So I've been delving whether I should share that story since it happened, and I tried to be very diplomatic about it. I spared a lot of personal details as to who he was and where he was, and anything that could sort of link back to him. And I think I presented it very well, and it took off. We put a post up in the morning just before literally going to a job saying, here's a picture of a job that we did, and there's a big story about it, and I'd like to share that story. And we went and did a job and got back into the truck, and it already had like 200 likes within 40 minutes, which is that's quite phenomenal. Organically, boosting is one thing, but to get that organically, so I had to do it justice as well. I had to really, I knew there was a lot of demand for it. Mental health is something that's not spoke about enough, and it affects far more people than we realise. I've had a tough year this last year. I'm glad to see the back of it, because it's taken its toll on me, and we're at to the point where we've totally changed the way that the company is now. There's people that have been brought in to help out and to drive it into another direction, which we can talk about later if we have time. But it needed to be said, it needed to be heard. And then so many people in the comments were in the similar situation, or had children in the situation where they're like, when I pass away, I don't know what's going to happen to my child, and I'm so terrified that they're going to end up like this. Thank you for helping him. I didn't do it for attention. I didn't do it for promotion. We don't need to promote, as you know. I did it because it needed to be heard, and I think I've got an audience, and it would be criminal not to use it for the right reasons as far as social justice goes. I never get political on my page, because it just causes too much division. I want my page, and I think I've been successful at it. It's not a business page. I've mentioned this, I think, on one of my comments. It's a safe space in the internet where people can come and be free of judgment. And, we deal with a lot of people that are embarrassed about the mess that we've got to clean up for them. And it's about realizing that people are people, when shit happens, and they can be put into a bad situation that's not their fault, and not cope and not deal with it and end up in a mess. And if I can come around and shift that, I don't just shift the junk, I shift the stress. And if I can do that and then spend an hour there taking away a stress that they didn't know how to cope with, that's more rewarding than the financial gain I've seen. Money doesn't actually interest me. As long as I can be comfortable, I'm okay with that. I want to help people, pretty much.
I love that. I love that. No, and it comes through, and I appreciate you going through that, because it I mean, you said and I know following some of your posts that some of the journey you've been on, and I've been on a journey as well, and you have more appreciation for people, more empathy for people.
Yeah.
When, we've, for all appearances, we live a pretty good life, both of us, right? And we still struggle with stuff, and there are people who have much different circumstances, and they don't have anybody to turn to. They don't have a community to turn to. And some of them end up being customers of the junk removal world, because material possessions, material things manifest in a way that kind of is an outpouring of the life. So it's having empathy for that is huge. So I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciated coming across it. I can empathize with your position too, because it's a fine line to walk, right? But I appreciate you sharing that out for the world. So yeah, guys, Paul's a real person, and I think if you haven't taken anything from this, is be real, be you, be kind, be empathetic. I think as any type of business person, any type of citizen of any country, you have to be a human. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to reach the people the same way you can. So really, really appreciate you diving into that. We're going to switch gears a little bit here and come back up for air a little bit. And we'll just go through some of the comments here.
Cool.
So Jonathan basically says here, he found your company, has been following you, and you've helped him tremendously in the way that you've helped him, shape his company. So that's really, really cool. Devin, I think this comment popped up when we were talking about using the images of the guys at the gym. There's a reason it's called college hauling junk. I think those are the comments there. Christopher says, this is a good one. What do you feel is missing for marketing in the junk world?
What we've just spoke about, being real, being a human. Literally that. Everybody tries, not everybody, a lot of people try to be corporate and have this business image, and it doesn't work on Facebook. That's fine for your website if that's the track you wanted to go down, but it doesn't work on Facebook. Nobody wants to see before and after photos. Nobody wants to see a big menu of the jobs that you do. Nobody gives a shit. They just want to see who you are, who's going to be turning up at their property, and if they can trust you. That's what's missing. Just humanity, really. Just drop all the corporate bullshit and the jargon and all of the sales talk, and just be real.
I couldn't agree more. And Devin kind of summarized what you said there, and that follows up well with this. People don't go on Facebook to buy; they go online to check up on their friends and family, become friends 100%. And family.
100%. That's the takeaway from this whole thing.
So good. So you touched on it a bit, and I'm actually curious to learn a little bit more about this. But I know you've made some pivots in the business world, and that's you talked a little bit about how you're kind of on the back of a tough year. But talk about it as much as you want to, as much as you want to share here. But what does some of that look like for you?
I'm not a businessman. I'll put that out there right now. I'm not a businessman. I'm not businessman. I'm not ruthless enough to be a businessman. I'm a creator, as far as I'm concerned. I'm a storyteller. I don't like the business side of it. If somebody could run my company for me and just let me go out and create, that's the ideal world for me. So I've put that into place. I brought in a business partner, my very best friend, somebody who, the relationship that we have, the friendship is ridiculously strong, and has been since we were teenagers. And it's stayed. This is a guy that I can go 5 years without seeing, turn up on his doorstep, and it's like it was yesterday that we saw each other last. And I mean, he grew up with a stutter, and when we were younger, A lot of people with stutters don't like you finishing their sentences, but I knew what he wanted to say, so I'd talk for him and finish off things for him, and he always appreciated that. And we've always had, where he's been strong and had strengths, they've been my weaknesses, where my weak, and vice versa. And it's been a tough year last year. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. I decided at the start of the year, with all the lockdowns the UK was having and the uncertainty with COVID, to just drop it down to one van, to work from home, to get rid of all of my overhead, so that if we couldn't work for a long period of time, we weren't just going to get bumped out the system. My partner Darian came on board with me, and I got to say, that girl, she can outwork any man that I've had work for me. That she's phenomenal. She is literally, if I was a female, that's her. She's the female version of me, and everything that I excel at, she excels at. The customer satisfaction that comes, that she's amazing with customers. She can graft. So I was like, we can do this. You know, the kids are old enough to go into nursery now, or work from home. We'll have one van, and we're just going to go out and dominate. And with you by my side, you know, it's Bonnie and Clyde. We're just going to go take the world on, and we did. But we had vehicle breakdowns. We spent half the year in rentals. Over here, vehicle prices for used trucks, like, it's doubled. It's just gone stupid, with everybody getting furlough pay and sat at home. They've all gone out and bought vans. There's a shortage of computer chips for ECUs, and new vehicles weren't getting made and delivered. It was just a quagmire. So we were replacing vans and paying, you know, well over the odds for absolute things that we should have been half the price at the very minimum. And then they would break, and it was just, we just couldn't. We lost some momentum. We couldn't keep up with ourselves. Couldn't catch up. And then I was having a conversation with my best friend Daz, and all our lives we've sort of said we need to go into business together, and we just never knew how or what or why. And it popped back up again, just driving down the road on Bluetooth, and we're talking, and he says, you know, we should go into business. I says, listen, I've got this business. Why don't you come into it with me? You know, and he's in a very well-paid career. He's settled in life, and I was like, we've got the following. You come in with me. He's amazing financially. His partner's a bookkeeper for a multi-million-dollar transport company over here. She does all the accounts and everything. So all the things that I'm terrible with, he excels at. And all the things that I'm great at, the marketing, the talking, just even talking to customers on the phone. He's with me today and turned around. He says, see, I can't do that. I can't just flow like you do and know what to say and when to say and how to say. And, you know, I don't have that tone of voice. You know, he knows that he'll sound quite rough and ready. And so it just made sense. And so we've amalgamated together, and we're merging slowly and bringing him in slowly. And he's done more in the background. I had staff, and I had staff who I gave opportunities to, where if you work hard to help me build this business, you will have something come from it. You know, you will be rewarded. Every step of this ladder I take, I want you to take the next step up behind me. And they couldn't do it. And that's not their fault. There was no common sense, and a lot of mistakes were made and problems. And I just found, you know, with ADHD, it doesn't help because my mind's got a million things going at once at all times. My internal dialogue does not stop. It's constant. From the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, it's spinning. There's cogs turning. And I was spinning all of these plates, trying to keep up and trying to run a business. And I have no idea how to run a business. And it took off, and I got too big too quick, and I couldn't keep up. And these guys that were meant to be having my back were letting me down and causing more problems and putting more plates for me to spin. And that's why I had enough. And, you know, I nearly closed it last year. I just completely had enough of the pressure and the stress and the constant trying to do everything for everyone and be everything for everyone. And I'm not an accountant, you know, I'm a writer. And so it got to this point where enough was enough. And I said, look, come on board, come and help me with this. You're going to be great at this. You're going to bring this to the table and this to the table. I bring this to the table and this to the table. And together we're going to dominate. We've got this following that is out of this world. And that was the thing that actually kept me in business and kept me going, was the people.
Yeah.
That
the relationships that you nurtured.
Yeah. So we're doing it slowly, and like I say, he's done more for me in the background than anybody has done, bar Darian, who's obviously right by my side. But the big things are coming now. Very, very big things are coming, and this is going to this is literally the start. We're just starting now.
I love it. Well, you've built a solid foundation. Would you say he's more of the implementer and you're more of the visionary?
Of course, 100%, 100%. And he'll run it. I've handed it over to him. I did a post about it. I was like, it's time to say goodbye. Meet the new owners of Junk Monkeys. Like, we're still going to be here, but we're taking a bit more of a back seat where it comes to that side of things. And the relief of the stress that I have now is phenomenal. My shoulders are lighter, and I can now focus on creating content. I can focus on writing, building relationships, building the trust up with people. And when you think about it, I've built Junk Monkey's reputation with only probably a third of the attention that I should be able to give it, because I've been having to fight all of these fires along the way. Now it's going to get my full attention, and I got Christmas out the way, I got January out the way, and I thought, sort of towards the end of January, I thought, now I'm gonna go for it. Now I'm gonna ramp things back up, and I'm just gonna somehow, some way, put content on every day. I'm gonna get engaging with people, and I'm gonna double down on all of those skills that I've learned. And you know what? As far as I'm aware, there's one company ahead of us in followers, and that's 1-800 Got Junk, and I'm chasing. And my goal is to overtake them, and give me 12 months, and I've got that. We're the second highest in the world, highest in the entire waste industry in the UK. Nothing can come close, and that's my goal, is to become the highest followed junk removal company in the world. And now that I can put that attention into it, yeah, it's coming. Sorry, 1-800 Got Junk. You guys are, you got the money, you got the marketing power, and this little man over here, he's going to have you.
I love it. We're going to have you on next year when you've reached the goal. That'll be huge.
100%.
That'll be huge. Well, Paul, this has been so cool for me. It really solidifies some things. You have stuff floating around in your head. I have ideas like crazy. My business partner Ryan will tell you, he's always trying to rein me in here. But it just solidifies those things that the consistency, the relating to people, being real, being raw, being vulnerable, being you. Exercising that X factor. That's huge. So really appreciate you laying that out here for people, and I hope that people aren't just listening to the cool stories. I hope that you implement one thing, and go ahead and do that. I'm going to touch on Jonathan's comment here, and then I'm going to wrap up. I'll just give you a second here to think about it, but maybe crystallize and conclude the conversation here with one or two things that a new business owner can focus on, or some tidbits. It doesn't have to be related to the conversation here, but I always like to pull out a little tidbit. So I'll read Jonathan's comment, and then we'll close with that. Jonathan says, I feel as though you'll only grow or be as successful as the people around you will allow you to be. We are who we are influenced by. And he says, Paul, glad your other half is on the same page with you. I think he's talking about Darian. We were talking about that at that point. So guys, I really appreciate everyone who tuned in the comments. If you're listening on the podcast or YouTube after, appreciate you jumping in. But Paul, this has been fun. I'm excited. I'm really, really glad to get to know the man behind the behind the Facebook page a little bit more, and the man behind
the monkey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the man pulling the strings for the monkey. But this has been swell. And if you could just kind of close off with one or two things that you would leave for people who are new in business, who've been in business for a while, just something to drop some nuggets here.
It's just time to change the way that we do business. Social media's it's the new line of communication. It's the new word of mouth. Understand that. Become vulnerable, man. Like, put yourself out there. It's scary. It's allow yourself to be judged and make mistakes, and then learn from them, and then just keep trying new things, like new techniques. Just keep plugging away. And if you're a new business, don't worry about making mistakes, man. The best lessons I've ever learned is from messing something up massively and going, I don't want to do that again. So what do I need to learn from that? Yeah, that's pretty much what I'd say. Like, just learn from your mistakes, try, and understand that there's a new way of doing things in this world, and you have to be you. You have to sell you.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah, there's a new way of communicating, because people are getting more able to tell what's real from what's not. So,
Of course,
Paul, this has been huge. I'd love to talk to you for hours here. I know we both have things going on. It's getting on 8 o'clock there for you. So guys, if you haven't yet, follow Junk Monkeys. Follow him, support him, help him in his run for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And follow and learn too. There's if you're a business owner, you're the salesperson, often starting out, you're the salesperson, the marketer, you're everything, and there's a ton of stuff to be learned there. So Paul, if you hang around here for a second, we'll close off the live broadcast. But once again, guys, appreciate everyone who showed up, and follow along for some more stories later. All right, cheers.